Hello and welcome to an Artis Opus video, which is very different. My name is Byron. I am fairly well known as a solid level army painter. I don't have any golden demons, but I am pretty well qualified to help average guys and girls with their painting and provide tips and tricks and you know, anything like that. So I'm actually taking a load of viewer submissions today. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I've not even loaded up. If you like the video, please like, comment and subscribe. Hit that bell notification to be notified for future content. We will probably be doing some more of these if it goes down well. So please do let us know your thoughts. If you agree or disagree with my feedback, I'm not going to be needlessly harsh. I don't get a kick out of stuff like that, but I am going to give my honest opinions in terms of what people could do to improve. So yeah, let's jump in. So our first submission is from Scott Raven Bennett from Hull in the UK. These are pics of my chapter master of my homebrew chapter called The Sons of Aries. I was wondering, is there a way of improving the white armor plate definition? First things first, and this is going to be a consistent theme throughout every single one, I imagine. I am a strong believer in the black base rim cult. If your base rims aren't black, I think you're doing it wrong, in my opinion. Now, I know that there's a lot of other ideas from that. Games Workshop tend to base theirs, their professional models, their heavy metal models, and their army painter team models with a similar color base rim to the majority color of the base of their miniature. I don't like that, and I think that framing your miniature in black is a brilliant way to make it look good in every single opportunity, not in a professional photo situation with some wads who've spent 20 years taking pictures of miniatures like Games Workshop have, but you know, on a black table, on a green table, on a snow table, on a whatever, black base rims are my favorites. Scott hasn't asked me about his black base rims, but there's two things about race rims that I imagine I'm going to be repeating a lot. They should be black, and there should not be any of your basing material on those rims. So if you get some sands trickling off on the sides, you know, just lick your finger, wipe it off, or if it's dried on, just knock it off with a knife. It won't show up once you've painted it black afterwards. How to improve the definition on the white armor. So first of all, looking at this armor, it doesn't look like Scott's got access to an airbrush, so I'll give advice in that sense. One brilliant way to improve definition is just about what you do with the recesses. White's quite difficult, so I tend to go from a very light grey, you know, like really light, and it could be a slightly blue grey or something like that. You've got amazing colours like Ulth from Games Workshop. It's about what is in the recesses of that. So if you took contrast painting, that is a really good example of how to do this. And actually, dude, your gold is really, really nice, and it looks like you've used a similar method on the gold that I would use on the white to improve the definition. So pick a solid covering just off-white grey, wash it all over. You could use contrast on that. I've forgotten the name of the contrast paint that's made for white armor, apothecary grey, white maybe. Pop that all over, repeat your base coat, and then just that separation should make a big difference. It looks like the white you've used doesn't have fantastic coverage. And as a result, you've needed to layer it up more than I would like to layer up white on my own miniatures. I would, yeah, find a base paint, mix it with a layer paint, potentially have that as your base coat, contrast or wash in the recesses, repeat your base coat, and then just a little highlight, only using white on the edge highlight, save it until that last spot. Then you should get both a brighter, crisper highlight on a smoother panel, and you should get some more dark stuff available in the recesses. It looks like you're going for kind of a bony white. Check out our white video on how to achieve a bony white with good colors. Otherwise, it's solid though. Dude, if that base rim was black, that model would be 3 times as good as well, in my opinion. Oh, cool. These base rims aren't going to be black, are they? All right, this is from Darren Jakes, Plymouth in the UK. 100% dry brushed Maya Lurk Queen from Fallout Wasteland Warfare. That is badass. That is a cool looking model. Okay, base rim's the wrong color. We'll skip that though, particularly with this, you know, soft, sandy. I really like the basing on these, apart from the rim, the soft, sandy base. If you were to cut that with a black line around the edges, I think that would look absolutely phenomenal. So, decent quality picture as well. That's cool. I like that this is kind of a vignette. I'm really into that. The grey on the claws is probably somewhere that I would say it's lacking a little bit of contrast, or in fact the miniature in general, just some slightly darker shadows or a bit more colour put into the greys and the browns in the recesses, and the beiges too on the actual beastie, I think would go a really long way. So use of washes, maybe a contrast or something like that, just, you know, very, very diluted. You could do it all over the entire thing now and repeat a couple of steps, or you could selectively push it into the recesses. I think that would work out really, really nicely. Otherwise, dude, though, solid. Like the basing quite a lot on this. Really, really cool. Nice minis. Always good to see. Yeah, Do love the diorama aspect of that as well. Next, we have Adam Scott, Middlesbrough. He's recently come back to the hobby after 20 years off. Lockdown was a good excuse as any. Yeah, tell me about it, bro. We're looking for some tips on how to get to the next level. I struggle with edge highlighting in particular. Any ideas for the base? I was thinking of putting on bits of Tyranids as a callback to the Battle of Macragge. Okay, so my prediction that I made prior to recording of me spending a lot of time talking about basing is 100% going to come true. Hopefully, Adam, you don't mind too much. I'm going to talk about one thing with your miniature, and then the rest of it's going to be on the base. So the one thing I want to talk about with your miniature is flat base coat. So I'm not sure if you have been using base paints or foundation or heavy coverage. In GW they'd be called base paints. I presume you're using GW. They are made to get really solid coverage on your first coats on your miniature. So where your colors aren't completely opaque and flat, they would really help with that. So 2 thin coats of a color. It doesn't have to be 100% base paint. You can mix in another one, but generally speaking, just 2 thin coats with any of GW's base paints will really, really help improve your coverage. And then I always say everything past a clean flat base coat is icing on the cake. So that is what I'd aim for on your miniature. For now, you're very neat though. Like you're well within the line. So you will improve exponentially in like a second if you get nice flat base coats. The base, right, load of opinions here. That scattery stuff, the rubbly thing, looks quite cool, but you need some smaller stuff. Otherwise, it just looks like, you know, bits and pieces from Minecraft that have ended up there or something like that. The way that I do bases like this is I put on the large, I PVA the entire thing, put on the large stuff, in a small selection, so you've got a little small selection there, and then I put on very fine sand. You can use GW sand, absolutely fine. Flat sand, then your big stuff, and absolutely you can put on a detail like the head of a Tyranid or something like that. I'm not sure if your base rim is finished, but it should be black. Really neat painting though, dude. If that was if that's your first miniature in 20 years, you're doing well. We've got Armand here, don't know where he's from. Very new to the game, first time ever painting. These base rims are white. Let's have a look though. Okay, so wanted to have a dirtier red for my breeches. Quite a nice scheme. I like greys on towels, think it looks really good. And marker drones compared to the rest of my army. Only painted a 500 point collection so far, but hope I'm doing well. Dude, neat lines, solid. Your snow basing's pretty good. The white rims do not make sense, in my opinion. The painting's neat, dude. I would maybe try and get in some more definition there. I really like the darker color that you've mixed, that dirtier red that you've mentioned. I'd have my entire army in that color. I think that's awesome. It goes really well with the green contrast you've got there in the helmets. Very nice, and your camo patterns are solid too. Maybe some closer up pictures would show it better, but those armor plates on your big Talbot dudes, I don't know any 40k proper terminology by the way. Those bigger armor plates are pretty solid, so I quite like those. That yellow on your dude's robe, it needs to be made to make sense within the context of your army. So I know he's meant to stand out, he's a leader, but it's just too different in my opinion. So one way that you could achieve that, I know this is going to sound a little bit funky, is that you could, well there's 2 things you could do. You could put like a red stripe around the bottom or something like that, but it's quite hard to do flat stripes. Or you could use red somehow in the very, very recesses or something. It'd take a fair bit of work, and if this is your very first time painting, it might be a little bit techie, but dude, you're doing really well already. I would maybe work my way up from, put a tiny bit of red in with whatever that yellow is as your first layer, and then work your way up to a proper yellow, just a tiny bit of the red. But what that will do is that red that is, you know, is pervasive, it's there throughout your entire army, whether it's the darker red or the lighter red, you can make sure that's present from the first point and then work your way up. And it'll just help tie everything together, because at the moment that stands out like a sore thumb. The green is awesome, massive fan of that. Next. Whoa, all right, Tristan 1. Nice, dude. First black base rim, good. Man, that's, okay, well let's see what the text says, because I'm pretty in love with that. I'm not gonna have a huge amount of criticism. Nice OSL, which is object source lighting. It's when something's glowing. I've been developing my own style within my personal 40k army for a few years. It shows. 2 ideas. Hayao Miyazaki, Princess Mononoke. All right, I'm in love already. We're singing from the same hymn sheet there. And Castle in the Sky with that of Mechanicus. In a nutshell, Desert Forge World once defeated, and not totally destroyed, comes back to life after thousands of years of overgrowth. Do you know of any good verdigris techniques? Oil paint. He's used oil paint and phthalo green mixed with Thai white. I can't quite get it to look right. Okay, verdigris, absolutely. I am 100% qualified to talk about that. It's one of my favorite techniques. So I've got a really kind of, I just don't change how I do my verdigris, basically. What I do is I start with a thinned down turquoisey color, and I use it very, very dilute, but more widely. And then I get less diluted and I add white to it, or even up to like kind of pale, very, very pale pastel-y greens. I go in that direction for that real coppery feel. So I work with a dilute large wash with the turquoise, and as I get smaller and smaller the selection, more and more in the recesses, I'm less dilute, and then I add in more white, and the white will make it cover even more. So what you end up with is kind of like general patchy effects, and then it gets really strong and intense in the recesses. Check out, I will get a link to one of our videos popped here. I've used verdigris quite a lot. Our basing, actually the Sector Mechanicus bases that I did with orange in them, it's the same I use for rust. I just pick a turquoise paint and go from there. Sotek Green generally, something like that. They're awesome though, dude. You should be incredibly proud. And Mononoke is close to my heart, and I think you've smashed it. Good job. All right, Bruno Aviero. UK, sorry for butchering your name. New mini painter here, only started the hobby around a year now. Can you please give me some feedback? I also need some hints on how to blend in some of the highlights, as I cannot do it for lack of skill. Blending's just practice, dude. Just put in the hours, dilute your paints, and don't be afraid to practice and screw up, because it took me a long time. Very neat though, getting stuff in those recesses. Okay, so black base rim, nice. The base is a bit flat within that, within the colors of it. I would maybe pop another washer over it, and I would have done a final highlight, maybe adding a bone and just whisking over, gently buffing over the top of that to increase definition. It's solid though, they're really good. I think quite a lot of your stuff could benefit from a little careful selective wash in the recesses, like you've got the stepped shoulder panels here. You could do that two ways. You can either put in a selective wash, or you could do your base coat, do the wash, repeat your base coat, but not in the recesses, and then rock on from there. Either of those is a fine way to do it. It's just down to personal preference. They're great though, great first job. Maybe another basing detail. You could use a tuft. I love tufts. I absolutely love tufts. I could use a tuft or something like that in addition to your little sprigs you've got, which look really cool. But yeah, a little bit more contrast on the piece, and I think it'd be really good. Blending, you'll just get there, dude. It just takes practice. Don't use tiny brushes. That doesn't make it easier in my opinion. Use at least like a size 1 or something. Dilute your paint and carry on playing with dilution. And don't use bad paints as well. That's another one. Use high quality, highly pigmented, very fine paints, not like gloopy thick ones or gel-like transparent ones. We've got Loganlord from Oklahoma in USA. That is a solid combination of gold and red there, and that gold is awesome. Miniature was painted with Series M&D brushes. Nice, dude. Oh, that gold is money. It's just really clean. Very, very, very solid. Okay, the one thing that I would absolutely change on that and just jump straight out at me, well, there's two things. Your base is badass. Really love the difference in texture between the gloss and the gloopiness. If that is meant to be OSL rather than mold buildup, I would use a slightly lighter color, but you're gonna struggle with using, if it is OSL rather than mold buildup, because your gloop is quite dark, so it wouldn't actually be glowing that much. So maybe I'll just use a wash closer to the gloop. Base is awesome otherwise from that though. The big thing that stands out to me here is you could go brighter in two sections. So if you were to, that sword's really good, by the way, nice blending. If you were to edge highlight the sword, it could be cool, but it's up to personal preference whether people like edge highlighting power weapons. I can take it or leave it either way. Either way can look really good, but I probably would on that one just to give it a crisp edge. And then the big one that is jumping out to me massively is the scroll work on the shield, and the robes could go to a further highlight. It's kind of drab in comparison to the rest, but otherwise it's great, dude. Really neat green eyes in there, good use of color, gloss the gems, love it. All right, Eugene Kelly from Ireland. Solid, your base rim is the wrong color. Right, good red, good edging, neat. Been out of the hobby for 15 years, seems to be a recurring theme here. Recently painted Tech Priest, happy enough with it, but like your help improve especially the plasma gun effect. Okay, glowing is difficult. So let's have a little look at the plasma gun. And I am going to concentrate on that. Your metallic paints have been put down slightly thicker on the darker. I think it looks like you've got metallic mixed with black, or it's either a dark metallic, which is around the plasma section. They've gone down a little bit thicker, so maybe just a little bit more patience and a couple of thin coats of those. The colours, I just think using different colours, different blues, would probably go a long way there, mate. So the way that I tend to approach plasma glows, I'm not, the best at these, but there are a couple of ways you can do it. You could lightly dry brush the surrounding area with one of the small dry brushes, extra small or small, with white, really carefully, and then you could glaze over a blue, and then you could make a mix of that blue and white, and you could just dilute it with water quite a lot, and just carefully, selectively put it in the recesses so the plasma looks like it's glowing. Or you could try and use fluorescent paints. However, fluorescent blue isn't really a thing. So you're probably just gonna have to do the work yourself, unfortunately. If it was green, you'd have a way easier job. Have a look at our plasma generator scenery video to see how I approached it. I put down quite a fat but dark glowing effect just around it, and then I selectively go in and add white in exactly the same way I was talking about verdigris before. Really solid though. I'm pretty impressed by all these people who've not painted for 20 years and then they're doing awesome stuff. One thing that I would add is you've got a load of tubing and stuff on this model, which is really cool. I would be putting some watered down rusty effects on that potentially. If you don't want him to look weathered and aged, then completely ignore that. But I love the contrast that you get in the recesses. My typical mix is Doomball Brown, Scrag Brown, Troll Slayer Orange, Fire Dragon Bright. Remember them off the cuff there, pleased with that. But yeah, very solid model. One thing that you could improve is how square the markings are around his hood. It's difficult, this type of stuff, but find a whitish paint. Rakarth Flesh is a good one. Add a bit of white into it, and as long as you've got a white with good coverage, it will make your job way easier. So I think that might make it easier to get the details there while the paint's diluted, because it's just hard to get crisp edges while using thicker paint. Kieran Keybacker on Instagram. These are looking solid, mate. Liquitex inks, Dark Angel with layers of green over metallic. Dude, good transfer as well. And the other white armor and Quisto was done with the more opaque version. These are great. It looks like kind of contrasty principles have been used with the Liquitex inks. Really, really, really solid. I don't have too much to add on these. They're very cohesive, they work. Good weathering working its way up the feet. One thing I would do is these minis are missing eyes. I know eyes are intimidating, but if you would just give these guys eyes, especially you've got that guy with the emo fringe, if he was looking at camera in that photo effectively, it would add a lot of personality. Same with this other dude. You could also potentially put another wash in the recesses of your steel metallics to make them look a bit more rusty, or just add a bit more depth to them. They're really cool though, but they're one step from awesome. The eagle on your dude is wicked. I love the different colors of metal on the wings. Looks solid. David Nightingale, originally from the UK, but in the Netherlands now. So one of these models has a black rim and the other one doesn't. Viewers, you can see the difference that the black rim makes or doesn't accordingly. These are my first ever miniatures. Dude, good job. Even tried blending on your first ever miniature, solid. Dude, you're gonna be fine. If that's your first ever set of miniatures, once start collecting later, you're gonna be a pro. These are really nice. What would I change on these? So obviously you're using foundational techniques apart from the blending, but you look to be doing them really, really well. A little bit of dry brushing, weathering there, I think, it's looking nice. What you could do is you could take a wash, the shades, Citadel shades I'm talking about when I say washes there, dilute it quite a lot, and you could carefully, while it's really dilute, use medium so you don't get patching or tea stains or coffee stains or whatever the regional way of it, describing it, when washes have been diluted with water and they dry out and they collect towards the edge and you get kind of pooling rather than smooth lines. That's what it's known as. If you dilute it with a medium, you won't get that. And if you use that thin down over your bases, you could add in hints of purple to the grays, or even a warm brown or something like that, and it could have a really good effect. The other thing you could do is you could use blobs of pigment. You make them into a paste, blob them on very non-delicately, make some blobs around, wash out your brush completely, and then you feather them out with a brush that's just got water on it to let them fade, let them dry, and you'll be surprised how awesome it looks. I really like grey basing with pigments on, thinks it looks awesome. All right, so we are done. Thank you very much to everyone who submitted their miniatures. Realize it's a little bit of a scary thing to do. For those of you who would like to have your miniatures critiqued in a future video, the web address is submit@artis-opus.com. Please do send your submissions in. If there's anything specific, it was really helpful when people let me know, like, I'm looking to improve my white, how do I add depth to this? That'd be really useful. And also, you know, let me know what paints you've used. If there's a particular area, and you're like, why doesn't this look how I want it to? Let me know, you know, like, I've used these 3 paints, and then I can give you the best advice possible. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Hopefully you've all found it enjoyable, and we will catch you in the next video.